Yo, yo, yo. What's up, everybody? How y'all feeling? How y'all doing? How y'all, how's y'all's week? Well, how was your week last week? Because it's Monday morning for you. What's the day? Thursday for me. Thursday evening for me. Y'all know I do pre-recording. So here I am. I hope y'all had a good week. I hope everything is well. Got a lot of changes going on in my life. So, but all good changes, all in all. So, y'all, we made it to season 2, season finale. We made it a whole nother season. Y'all, I have people that have been rocking with me since season 1. It's about to be a year coming up next year since I've been doing this, and y'all don't understand how I had no idea that it will be like this. I was very, very shocked. It's still going. I thought I was gonna be the one hit wonder, but man, and it looks like it's gonna be a season 3. It looks that way. It's looking like it's gonna be a season 3. But again, welcome to the Healing Exchange. Y'all know me by now, Jacquilla McFarley. Logistics, go ahead and click subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, share, and invite people. Send the link to people you that needs a blessing or needs to hear the message. Click subscribe under the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, Instagram, healing_exchange. Facebook is just me, Jacquilla McFarley. TikTok is Jacquilla MC. Y'all follow me, like, share, subscribe, follow. If you're listening via audio on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can click the plus button at the top and add the show to your roster. You can click notifications on YouTube to get notified. And yeah, that's everything. That's that's the logistics. I'm finally able to remember without looking at my phone. So, y'all know how we do, like we did last season. I'm going to be doing like a recap of everything we've talked about, everything we've learned this season. And God is so amazing, y'all. God is so amazing. I had some amazing people in season 1 and season 2, like people that are taking the time out to come and sit on my couch and talk to us, talk to all of us. So I thank all of my guests from season 2. Shout out to everybody. I'll give my shout outs as we go throughout the layout. But season finale, y'all. Season finale. Now, we're going to recap. So, y'all, episode 1, we talked about God's will or my will. And that episode was cool. That episode, we talked about how we need to surrender to God's will instead of our own will. That was a hard pill to swallow, because I told y'all a little bit on my testimony how I'm so organized and I have everything mapped out with my day and what I want to do, and you have to have the space and the opening to allow God to interrupt your day or to change your plans. I have plans. I have plan A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. Backup plans, and God doesn't want to be a backup plan. He wants to be the only plan. So we talked about that. That was a hard pill to swallow, definitely for me. God's will or my will. And then we talked about sex. We talked about sex and why God doesn't want us to have sex before marriage. And my leader, my pastor, was on here, Jerry Owens. He came on the couch and was spitting some wisdom regarding sex and how sex is good. Sex is good. Sex is God. Sex is God's idea within the contents and the confines of marriage, though. And he talked about the effects and the negative outcomes we get ourselves into when we step outside that context and step outside God's boundary as to having sex with people without a ring. And it's not so much of it being, oh, it's just a paper. It's like, no, in God's eyes, like, because marriage and ceremonies and all that stuff we be doing now, none of that stuff, that's not for God. That's for us. The world created that. The way God sees that you're married to someone is when you consummate, when you come together and have sex. To God's eyes, he's looking down and being like, oh, okay, they're saying I do right now. They are saying I do. So, and we talked about blood covenants and all of that. It was real good. Y'all, this mic is really being a stumbling block. But anyway, talked about sex and why we shouldn't do it and how we need to cast down those imaginations and get rid of those soul ties, man. How many, because think about it, how many people are we walking around married to according to God? Because we done laid down and have sex with them. People that are not even going to commit to us. We're walking around with bodies on us and those spirits within us. We need to break those covenants. We have to break those covenants. We have to denounce and renounce and get rid of those bodies that's with us. So that when we get married to our spouse, we ain't comparing them to nobody else. We're not comparing them to no experiences or nothing. We just focus on our spouse. And that's how God intended it to be. Everybody was supposed to be virgins. We all were supposed to be virgins until marriage, and we were supposed to get together and get with our spouse and be each other's first, time with sex. But of course, that's not how it works in today's world. Sex sells everything. So I'm not, like I always say, I'm not condemning. I didn't have sex before marriage. You got some people that have, experienced some molestation and rape, that being their first time dealing with sex in a bad way, in a negative light. So all of that stuff we talked about. Now, that's just a recap, y'all. If you haven't seen that episode number 2, it was great. So, and then I kind of did like a part 2, episode 3. I talked about my porn addiction. When I had a porn addiction, I was first exposed to pornography when I was maybe 11 or 12, just experimenting, and nobody taught me about sex, and that's when you hit puberty anyway. So just experimenting with that, and started watching pornography at age 12 and continued to watch it. So y'all, this mic is crazy. I don't know what's going on here, but yeah, and continued to watch it all the way up to adulthood. It became an addiction. I started watching it every day, multiple times a day, watching pornography and getting a warped view of sex and of people, because pornography is very demonic. It's very demonic. We sit there, and it's it leads to masturbation, of course. If you're watching pornography, more than likely you masturbating. And we sit there, we masturbate to these people that's faking it. They getting paid to fake it. Most of those people go off of the porn industry, those porn stars y'all see. Most of them don't. They go off. They have to take pills to get them lubricated. They have to act, and when they get off set, they go in the bathroom crying, or their body parts are hurting. But it's all fake, and we imagine ourselves in those scenes for people that are faking it. So pornography is wrapped in deception, is wrapped in manipulation. It does something to your brain. It desensitizes your brain. So if you deal with pornography, I suggest that you go on. They have these different there's this one website, and they're not paying me to endorse them, but it's called Covenant Eyes, where you can go. I think it's something where you can go on there, and they have certain websites where you can put blockers on those websites on your phone or your laptop, so when you get that urge, you can't get on it. So you need a lot of accountability. If you deal with that, you got to have a lot of accountability in order to stop it. And don't feel bad if you may mess up here and there. Just get back up and start again. Season episode 4, we talked about to thine own self be true, and that was with my leader, Pastor Christy, Coach Christy, that we call her in our community, Coach Christy Owens. She came on here, and the woman was on here spitting knowledge. Okay, she talked about how it was one thing she said. She said, I asked her, how do you switch so many hats? Because she's the first lady of the church, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a grandmother, and coach. She does all of these things. And she said something so profound. She said, I don't switch hats, I just switch locations. Meaning I am myself in every aspect of how I show up. I'm still myself. And that blew my mind, man. That challenged me. It challenged me to evaluate myself and how it's okay. You don't have to change yourself to fit a certain title or to go in certain rooms. You adjust. There are some things you may adjust depending on the room and the title that you're in. But you don't change yourself, your purest self in your heart. You never change it when you just switch locations. And I'm like, man, bars. That was bars. And so we talked about that, just basically being your true authentic self. It was an amazing show. Definitely you should watch that one if you haven't, if you deal with low self-esteem and all of that. Episode 5, we talked about processing the process. That was a really good episode too. I think I talked about the book of Jeremiah and the story about the potter and the clay, and how we are the clay, and we need to allow God to be the potter to crush us, and how crushing and how reforming us doesn't feel good, but it works out for our good if we allow God to be the potter and let him mold us and shape us. And I talked about the actual process that potters go through with clay. They pick out their clay, they slap the clay on the potter thing and put water on it and start shaping and scraping and smushing and moving around, crushing. And I use that analogy. And, once they're done shaping you, there's a few things they'll shave off. Once they have the form that they want, before it dries, they shape it off. Then they put you in they heat you up. They heat up the clay to make it hard. And I talked about how when God is processing us and making us over, how it doesn't feel good. It's uncomfortable. To be smashed and crushed does not feel good. But he allows us to go through that process for us to get all of those things that are not like him, and things that don't look like him, and don't look like heaven, and don't look like the kingdom. He squeezes that stuff out. He squeezes it out, because you can't go to your next thinking about with your past residue on you. So that was a really good episode as well. And then we got into the grief series. Now, y'all, the grief series was such a blessing to so many people. Like, I think that may have been the most highly rated episodes, because I did a 4-part. Most highly rated episodes, whether it was through audio or YouTube, because in the back I can see the statistics. Man, that series was a blessing. It was, to be honest with y'all, it was hard for me to get through that, because as y'all know, I'm grieving as well. The first part of grieving, it was grieving with God, and I talked about my grief journey, how I grieved my grandfather 2014, and my most recent, when I lost my godmother in 2022. Both of them died from cancer. And how my grief journey now is different from what it was back then, and how grief is such a roller coaster. There is no end to grief, and people grieve in different ways, and there are grief stages that people go through. As far as grief, everybody does it. Grief doesn't look the same for everybody. It does not look the same for everybody. And I really learned that when I did the grief series. Part 1 was just me. Part 2, I had Miss Tawanan Ware. She talked about her grief journey regarding the murder of her son. Her son was in his 20s or early 30s. She talked about how she found out leading up to that day. She just talked about her journey. She was very, very open, and how to her what grief looked like for her. She didn't cry. She didn't really like cry and let go until a year after his death, to where she was mad at God, crying, letting it all out. But during the time when he first died, she was being strong and holding other people up while her son is laying in the casket, you know, and she couldn't cry, and her grief looked different, you know, and she cried a year later. She didn't cry until a year later, letting it all out, and she's still not done crying. So that was a really good episode. And then part 3, Miss Annalisa Buford came on here, her first time ever speaking out about her son being murdered at 16 years old. Murdered at 16 years old. He was shot, and unfortunately passed away. And she talked about her grief journey with losing her son a couple of years ago or a year ago. And that show, we both got teary-eyed because, man, that she was saying some deep stuff. And not so much deep as in like, because this series wasn't about giving advice so much. It was about letting people know that they are not alone in grief. And when grief hits you negatively, you're not the only one that it hits like that, to act out. It's okay to not be okay, especially when it comes to grief. No matter who you're grieving, who that person was to you, everybody grieves differently. So at the end of the day, I just wanted people that are going through grief to know that I understand, we understand, and that grief is certainly a process, and then there is no end to it. There is no end to grief. For a person to die that was very close to you, to say that you will fully heal and get over it. You may get over the circumstances of like how they died and leading up to it, but to get over that person, that's just not realistic. You have to find out who you are without that person in your life for the rest of your life. They're never coming back. So realistically, yes, we move past how they died and maybe the process leading up to when they died, but getting over the person, it's not possible. You're going to always think about them. It's just now turning those thoughts into positive thoughts and knowing how to manage grief when it comes up. Don't hold back your tears. Don't hold back your anger. You got to let that stuff out, man. You got to let it out, or it's going to come out in other ways, and it's going to be like a ticking time bomb. And it could be unloaded on people. Some people have psychotic breaks. Y'all wonder why, and this is just a tangent. Here's a fun fact about me. I love biographies, documentaries, murder shows, crime shows. I watched every season of the first 48. From season 1 back in the day all the way up to now. All of them episodes. Like, those type of shows like scratch an itch in me. It scratches a particular itch. And I just love seeing how you will get like a serial killer or a person that may have murdered somebody intentionally, and the documentaries always goes back. Most of the time it always goes back to their childhood, how they grew up, how they were raised. And it's like, man, and I was sitting still, and don't take this out of context, please. And I was like, I could have easily became one of those people, a serial killer or a murderer, because you'll find, like, you know me, I'm in psychology. The reason that they acted out like that is because they never got healing from childhood wounds, or they were holding stuff in and couldn't let it out. And then when they finally break and let it out, they end up being a serial killer, or they end up being a murderer and going to jail for the rest of their life, or some of them die, suicide or whatever. But it's just because the pain that they went through, because most of those people grew up, don't nobody come out the womb wanting to kill people. Like, those people have bad childhoods, just like we talk about. We have bad childhood. Thank God we're not serial killers or murderers. I would hope you're not. But we can easily be that type of person. And we look at the crime and look at them so horribly, and don't get me wrong, that's not good. I am not advocating for serial killers or nothing like that, but I'm saying as far as their life, It's like we could have easily been that person and had a psychotic break. Like, easily. So I was thinking about that. Like, man, we really need to address our pain, our wounds, go to therapy, get mentors. We really need to. Your life is dependent on it, and the people around you. The world is dependent on it. So, talked about back to grief. Miss Annalisa Buford came, and then I had a little break. I thought it was only gonna be 3 parts to grief. So the next episode we talked about, am I hard to love, or do I make myself hard to love? And man, I'm still getting feedback from that show, from that episode, because we view love so wrong and so in a negative light. And I think the people that do that, like people that be in relationships and then they break up and they always blame the other person, or they always blaming it on, I've been through so much, and they become a victim, and you have to accommodate what they've been through because they don't want to address it. Because we all have triggers. I mean, we all have triggers. But you should be able to address triggers. Show you the area that you need to work on. Triggers show you, now there's no time limit on having triggers, but triggers can change as you get older and develop, and different stages of life. It can all change. Some people hold on to their pain, and it's like, this is me, like it or leave it type thing. And they make the people that are trying to love them, whether it's platonic, family, or romance, they make those people pay for not wanting to get the help, and blame them for leaving, or blame them for not wanting to accommodate staying the same. Excuse me, y'all. Yeah, and they blame you for you not wanting to coddle their feelings, when they can not easily, but they can make those adjustments on themselves. We should always show up to any relationship, show up in the world as our best self, and not use our pain as an excuse and make those people suffer that are trying to love you, So we should always be working on ourselves, our best selves. And God bless those people that stick around with you, and while you change, and while you make adjustments, and while you do the work. Because there's always going to be work to do for us until the day we die. You will always be healing from something. Always be healing from something. So, that episode was really good. Definitely you should tune into that one. And then, so like I told y'all, I thought the grieving series was going to stop at part 3. So after that episode, I sat still, and God was like, hey, you're not done with grief. I gave you a little break, but we got one more part. And he told me to reach out to Miss Kimberly Law. Miss Kimberly Martin Law came on the show. She was the final part of grief. She talked about the murder of her son. He was 18 during a home invasion, and how she processes grief, and how she processed it then, and how she was saying that now she knows that God was preparing her for the death of her son. The year before, he had her always praying, and then after it happened, she realized, oh, God had me praying like that because I was interceding on behalf of myself because of what was about to happen. I tell y'all, God know everything, even when things happen, because again, God is not responsible for murders, untimely deaths. God is not responsible for people dying of sickness. God didn't mean for us to die from sickness. And I feel like most people blame God, like, why did you take my loved one? And it's like, God didn't take your loved one. Cancer did. The heart attack did. Gun violence did. He didn't have that in his plan for them. But it's so crazy because even in that, he knows. He knows. God doesn't stop every evil in the world. He just doesn't. He doesn't stop every evil in the world. So evil is in this world, and it happens. It happens. So to blame God isn't fair to God, but you can include him in your grieving process. So she talked about all of that, and her son and the funeral and how she's moving on now. And what did Miss Kemp say? She said, grief is, there is no process to grief, but grief is a process. I said, wow, there is no process to grief, but grief is a process, meaning there's no set way to get over grief, because people grieve so differently. But yet and still, grieving is a constant process. You're going to be grieving until the day you die because you lost someone you love. I was like, man, that's a strong quote. Like, she should get that on the t-shirt. So that was the final part of that. And I want to thank all of my guests, Jerry Owens, Christy Owens, who else was on here? Miss Tawana Ware and Alicia Buford, Miss Kimberly Law. Thank y'all for coming and sitting with me during the season to share your testimony, because that's what we do on here. We may not always, I may not always have the best advice, but my biggest thing is, when I was developing this podcast, is I want people to know that they are not alone in their issues. And I want to bring up those real issues that they probably can't hear at a church service, because it's a real issue. My biggest thing is letting them know that you're not alone, or like the Me Too movement. I've gone through things as well, and how I process it. And because it's good to feel that you're not alone in situations. Like, oh man, I'm not the only one going through this. So that was my whole thing with developing this show. Confession, healing, exchange. It's not just me up here preaching to you. Every guest I have here, even when I'm by myself, it's always a healing exchange. I'm always learning something about myself as I'm talking to you, or as my various guests are talking to you. So you are not alone, man. Y'all, you are not alone. And as we wrap up season 2, I'm going to pray for you at the end, but because I'm going to be honest with y'all, we may not be able to, I might not be back until January of 2025 with season 3. But it's really not that far, not that long, because we are already almost through September, October, November, December. We got 3 more months of this year. Man, time goes by fast. I remember when it was January 2024. But we're almost in 2025. So y'all may not see me until January of 2025 with season 3. I have a lot of transitions going on in my life currently. I am moving out of this place. I've been here at this apartment for about 6 years. Since 2018. This was my very first apartment. Came here. I remember being so excited when I first moved here, because when you get your own place, you excited. This is mine. So I'm moving to a bigger place. God has really blessed me and given me favor and taken care of me to where I can move to a much bigger place now. Me and my baby. And y'all, when I mention my baby, I'm talking about my bunny rabbit. I'm a bunny mom. We're moving to another area, to a new city, bigger place, better neighborhood, better area. So I'm going to be working on moving throughout the rest of this year. And y'all going to get season 3. Y'all going to get new aesthetics. It's probably going to be a different background. It's going to be a different layout, because I'm going to be in a whole new place. So I got some things brewing already. I already got some topics going. So I feel in my spirit that it's going to be a season 3. Y'all, it just won't start until January 2025. Every time, these seasons are over, I like to retreat and pray and get and hear God for the show, because this show ain't my show. This is God's show. He owns it. This is his show. I just do what he tell me to do. I'm just here as a vessel. This show belongs to God, King Jesus. So I'm going to go away and talk to God and see what he wants for his show, how he wants to use me in season 3. So I'm going to take that time, get some aesthetics, get a new background, get settled into my new place. Yeah. So a lot of transitions, even just in not so much moving, but just a lot of transitions going on with me mentally, emotionally, physically, back in the gym. I'm losing weight. I'm trying to eat better, be better in my finances, be better in the relationships in my life with connecting. Going on a trip this weekend to the Chicago area, Chicago, Illinois, in that area, going to see a famous podcaster, well-known podcaster. So that'll be my little getaway to learn from someone else and receive for a while, and moving and more connections, getting more involved in my church, focusing on school. I'm going to be really focusing and buckling down on school. So all of that's going to be happening within those 3 months, which is why I want to be settled in. And by January, the beginning of January, we'll be back season 3, more guests, more topics, all of that. And I just want to take the time to thank everybody. Like, I'm always going to thank y'all every single show, but just I have some people that's been watching and supporting me since season 1. Watching every single episode, commenting, liking, sharing it, encouraging me. Like, y'all don't know how those encouraging words and DMs about how certain episodes bless you, how that encourages me. It really fills up my love tank. I want to hug every single body that watch it and thank y'all, because I had no idea I would be here. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be sitting here with a mic in my hand or serving the way that I serve or talking, period, I would have never believed it. I would have never believed I would be here. So, and I get emotional when I think about it, man, how God has brought me from such a long way. I often reflect on past, not so much dwelling on it, but just I oftentimes think about it, because it makes me thankful of how far I've come, and the many of times I should have been either killed or took my own life or overdose or whatever. Just being out there in the street, knowing that the street wasn't for me. So I often reflect, and I just thank God for how far he's brought me. And I thank y'all for listening. I thank y'all for being a safe place. I hope I could be a safe place for you. I hope the Healing Exchange can be a safe place for you. And this is not goodbye. This is not goodbye. This is cheers to season 2. This is the ending of season 2. And I will definitely see y'all on season 3, January 2025. And just to give a last motivational nugget or encouragement, like, don't stop with me, y'all. Don't stop with the show. Find some videos, find someone to watch, and keep your growth going. Keep it going. Don't stop because the season is up. Keep going with your growth. Whether it's you find another podcast that's motivational, that's talking healthy, that's giving good nuggets, whether it's you joining a community or a church and getting mentors or being a part of different groups, don't stop with your healing journey. Do not stop. You can even replay the episodes from season 1 and season 2. Do not stop. And you can hit me up. You can DM me, Instagram or Facebook. I'm not gonna be completely off the scene. I'm still gonna be on social media. You might get a couple of 1 or 2 minute reels that I'll make if God gives me like a nugget or something. But as far as the show, I'll see y'all January 2025. And I want to pray for you before I go, before we end the season. If you're driving, don't bow your head. Just listen. Keep your eyes on the road. God, thank you. Thank you for everything before we ask you for anything. Thank you for everything that you've done all the way up to this point. You've kept us alive. You kept us safe from seen and unseen dangers. You protected us. You give us breath in our lungs so freely every day. You wake us up every day. You rock us to sleep. God, I thank you. I thank you for your son's death, burial, and resurrection, to where that he saved us one time and we can live in that moment and continue to get up, dust ourselves off, apply the blood of Jesus, and keep going. Thank you for your ultimate plan to save this world, with us included. Thank you for that redemption, so that we can get up, rise up out of whatever sin we're in, and dust ourselves off and keep going. God, Holy Spirit, I ask that you please be with my friends, my family, my neighbors. Guide them, order their steps. But before you do that, I ask that you please reveal any unforgiveness that they have in their heart. Because your word says if we don't forgive our trespasses, then you won't forgive us in heaven. So before we can even ask for forgiveness, we ask that you show us any unforgiveness in our heart so that we can get it right. And please, after we get it right, forgive us for all of our sins that we've done that didn't look like you, anything we said, anything we've acted out on, anything that didn't reflect you, God. We ask for forgiveness. We ask for forgiveness. Thank you for your forgiveness, for your grace and your mercy. Thank you for being our Father. Thank you for being King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Thank you that we're able to serve a God like you, because there are so many in the world, so many people in the world that you died for that deny you. So we thank you that we accept you, King Jesus, in our life. And we let you, whatever is in our lives we don't own, we let you own it. And I pray for my neighbors, my friends, and my family, God, that you will protect them, order their steps, give them favor, blessings, change their life, God. Give each person listening to me an experience with you, a true, authentic experience with you, so they'll know who you are for themselves. Lead us, guide us, protect us. And we ask this in Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Y'all, the mic done fell. I ain't even know. Hopefully y'all could still hear me. But I see y'all in 2020. Well, I'll see y'all on social media, but see you on the Healing Exchange 2025. Love y'all so much. Peace.